Right, so the opponent won the roll and chose to go first. It's my understanding that in most matchups it's best for Prism to go second, so I can block out as much as possible on turn 0 and then try to hit with Heralds on turn 1 to build my cards in Sol. Unfortunately, I'm already showing my inexperience against assassins with that attack reaction, and as a consequence I can't play my Soul Shield because I don't have enough to pitch. I would have been better to hold the Herald of Protection and then play the Soul Shield with pitching the 2 reds. I think this was the right play, attacking with the Herald of Protection to hopefully get a card into Soul and generate a Spectral Shield. I had the blue Wartune Herald to pitch for Footsteps if they had a popper, which would allow me to play the Herald of Protection. Unfortunately, the opponent had a D-React, but I remember thinking at the time that this gives me information to know they run Sink Below. I wasn't paying attention to the Bloodrot Pox, I actually forgot it was even there, so I get hit with another 2 damage. In hindsight, it probably would have been better to arsenal the Herald of Protection and then pay the 2 resources with the Wartune. They'd still have the shelter for the next turn, but I'd have a 5-card hand, and overall it would have been a better value turn for me. From memory, I decided to play the Angelic Wrath to guarantee the on-hit. I think it probably would have been better to keep it in hand so that I had a larger hand for whatever Erudition drew. If nothing else, I could have arsenaled it. One of the basic things I really struggle with Prism is deciding which figment to tutor. I think Erudition is almost always the best choice, but it's where I think a much deeper understanding of the game's state and the opposing hero is really beneficial. Still, I do the simple thing and I get Erudition. That way I can attack again with my Herald, pitching the Figment, and then at the least the Ponder will draw me a card to arsenal. I think under most circumstances I'd tutor Figment of Protection here, but that's already in my pitch zone. I went with Figment of Rebirth but I'd probably go with War in hindsight. The courage token would be helpful for a future attack, and I could leave Rebirth to get a Herald of Erudition back in my deck at a later stage. Awakening Avalon was probably a mistake. I believe I did it just so that I had some ward, but if that was my plan, I think I should have tutored War and then awakened Bologna. I think that Avalon would have offered me a better opportunity later in the game. This was a pretty huge mistake. I thought Footsteps was okay, blocking the Hunter's Clave, but I didn't realise that Footsteps would be destroyed if the attack is buffed to 6 or more. So it pays to read the cards and know what your own equipment does. I end up taking 4 damage. I clearly should have blocked with one of the Heralds. That'd still leave me with 4 cards and my Footsteps. If I'd done that, I would have only taken 2 damage this turn. I don't think it would have been worthwhile to try and block out with all the Heralds and then pitch Figment of Ravages to play my card from Arsenal. This turn I again didn't pay attention to the Bloodrot Pox token. I should have attacked with the Herald of Triumph that I had in Arsenal, pitching the Herald of Protection, and then paid the Bloodrot Pox with the War Tune. Then blocking out my attack and me taking another 2 damage from the Bloodrot Pox just compounds a pretty bad turn with me losing Footsteps. This is what I've come to call a Talishar screw-up, where I'm not paying attention to the current phase that we're in. I thought it had actually gone on to my turn and I was awakening Soraya in my turn, but thankfully nothing backfired on me. I decided to awaken Soraya this turn because I wanted to try and push a bit more attack. I thought attacking 4 with her and a decent chance to draw another herald with her ability would be an acceptable attack. I think it would have been better to attack with my Herald of Triumph and Arsenal, pitching War Tune. Maybe it hits and I get a Figment of Protection and a Spectral Shield, and then arsenaling the Herald of Triumph that I already had in hand prior to awakening Soraya. This is another misplay by me. I should have let the Hunter's Clave hit. It's just 1 damage. Soraya was always going to get killed this turn. I think using the Soul Shield to try and protect her was just a waste. The opponent then attacks with Kiss of Death for 3, which is effectively 4 with the on-hit. I also wasn't paying attention to the Tunic and their 1 floating resource. If I'd recognised that, I would have understood that they could swing Hunter's Clave again. So that's an oversight by me. So I ended up taking 4 damage this turn when it could have been only 2. But I think part of that is the fear of heroes like Slippy with their attack reactions, and I guess uncertainty, knowing when I should block, how much I should block, making sure that I have enough attack left for me to send. So there's the first popper for the game. But this is a good draw. I wanted to block as little as possible so I could send as much attack as possible on my turn. I overblock on the Hunter's Clave again. And this is the first time the opponent has used Flick Knives, which is a card I don't understand at all. And then the opponent plays Creep. So once again I took 5 damage that turn when it could have been just 2 if I'd blocked better and understood their deck better as well. Looking back on this, I don't think that I should have played Angelic Wrath here. I was too focused on maximising my damage when the War Tune was going to hit anyway. I should have arsenaled the Wrath for a later turn and used it to guarantee a Herald on hit. I make the decision to destroy Dreamweavers to try and ensure that no popper was going to affect my first attack. A guy at my armory earlier in the week actually stressed the importance of using the Prism equipment, and it's something that I always forget to do. I do it with other heroes as well, actually. I'm pleased that I didn't rush to play the Wrath here. It's an instant and I don't need to play it yet, so it was important for me to be conscious of that and hold back. The opponent actually had the D-React, so holding off on playing the Wrath till they committed with the D-React is the better play from me, so I'm pretty happy with that decision. I think it was wrong to choose Ravages here. On balance, I think she's better to get later in the game when the opponent is on, say, 5 health or less. I don't know why I decided to tutor her. I also don't know why I decided to awaken Second. Most likely I was focused on just raw attack. I think it would have been a better decision to awaken Aegis to get the spectral shields. When I calculated up last turn for the opponent and this turn, I lost 9 life on the opponent's previous turn, but I was able to do 10 damage to them on my turn. It doesn't seem on balance to be the most effective turn, but the 4 ward given by Second is also a consideration, I think. And because of that, I think it's hard to fully appreciate the value of certain turns with Prism. I'll say this right now, I kind of hate Arclight Sentinel because I can never play it optimally. It's absolutely my fault, but it's always the least effective card I play in any given game with Prism. I was happy to pitch it because I would have played it wrong if I was given the chance. I decided to play the war tune because it would free up a spot in my arsenal where I could put Rebirth. It also demands 2 cards from the opponent's hand, so unless they had a Popper or a D-React, they'd have to be willing to give up Flick Knives as well. They did have the Sync, but it still took 2 cards out of their hand, which I think is a pretty decent trade-off. And now I actually realise I have a hat, and I can use it with my floating resource to get another figment out and develop more ward. I go for the war because of the courage token and decide to attack with Bologna to force more cards out of the opponent's hand. Thankfully, the opponent has what appears to be a very weak hand, and by them playing Codex of Frailty, I'm able to get a red Herald of Triumph out of my graveyard and into Arsenal. I chose to discard my blue Herald of Triumph because of its lower attack value, and the blue doesn't really serve me with no footsteps. I've got 5 ward and choose to block with the Triumph, having the that all you got as a D-React if necessary. I end up playing the that all you got to try and cover all of the attack and keep my 5 ward. The ward 5 that I have still on the board absolutely saves me this turn, as it means I can block with just the war tune and then still have erudition buffed by angelic wrath if needed, which at this point I was certain would close out the game for me. I am able to play out my hand as I'd planned. And the opponent concedes. Now these are my stats for the game. My value per turn wasn't too bad. No doubt in the hands of a better player the value would be higher, but it's a definite improvement from where I started out when I first started playing Flesh and Blood. I was happy with some of my blocking in the game and some of the decisions that I made, especially around destroying Halo to tutor a Figment, but I definitely made a number of mistakes in overblocking, not paying attention to the board state with things like Bloodrot Pox or the opponent's tunic counter, not maximising the value of my turns. But those are simple things I think that I can work on. Now that I've reviewed the game a couple of times and looked up the opponent's cards in the process, that should help me to better understand what Slippy is trying to do. And I think the more times I match up against him, the better I'll obviously be. My turn 5 was underwhelming, but that was the turn where I didn't have a yellow in hand and could only send a red Herald of Triumph, which the opponent popped with Blanche. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Please leave a comment below if you have any suggestions or spotted any alternate player lines that would help me improve. Catch you next time.